Good morning, everyone. So I'm very excited for this talk and this announcement because we have been working on our governance system for, I don't know, the past 6, 7 months, really hard. So I hope that you're going to like it. I will give you, sorry, I had a little problem. Okay, it starts here actually. All right, so we're definitely going to be unveiling the Melon Council today. But before that, I think I'm going to give you kind of like a small 101 on our governance model for those who are not aware of it. So let's take one step back, as we've said since on the past 2 years, and as Mona said yesterday, Melonport is going to be wind down by the end of February. So that means that the company that our team works for is going to be shut down. And with that, we need to find a system, a governance model that is going to ensure the future development and maintenance of the Melon protocol. So Melonport shutting down is not the end of the Melon project, obviously. It's actually just the beginning. So when you want to build a model for a protocol that is supposed to be self-sustainable and decentralized, what you really want to do is first identify all of your ecosystem stakeholders, and that's really important. So in our case, we have 4 main stakeholders. They are the token holders, the developers building on top of Melon, the users, obviously, and the maintainers. So what we want to make sure is that the model that we're proposing here is catering for the needs of all of those stakeholders. So yesterday, at the end of the day, we had a great panel on Melonomics, and it turns out Melonomics actually addresses the needs of the token holders and the needs of the developers. So in Melonomics 1, we have opened up the Melon token to any team or project who wants to build on top of Melon. And in Melonomics 2, we found a model with the Melon engine that is aligning the token value with the usage of the network. So those 2 things allow us to do to address the needs of the token holders and the developers, because we maximize network effect and we provide proper economic incentives. So now what we have to see today is how do we address the needs of the users and the maintainers. So that's what this presentation is about. So when we started working on governance, none of us had worked on governance before, so it was quite new. And we really started, asking the question, like, what is the goal of this? Like, what are we trying to do? And we tried to identify 3 main goals that our model should support. The first one is preserving the integrity of the network and its security, which is something obviously important in the case of a protocol for asset management. The second one is maximizing user adoption, since we linked the value of the token with the usage of the network. And the third one is fostering innovation to render the network more attractive in the future. So how do we do that? After you have identified all of your stakeholders, the next step that you should do is ask the question, which stakeholder is the most vulnerable? Like, who is the person or the group of persons who are the least protected in this ecosystem? And in our case, we found that the users, so we made like some analysis on the different interests and how they are aligned or misaligned, and the conclusion was that the users are the group that is the most vulnerable in our network. So we kind of like worked backward from that, and we tried to build a model that is hopefully user-centric and skill-based. So what does that mean? So here comes in the Melon Council that most of you have probably heard of. Just as it sounds, it is a body that is composed of persons or entities that are going to be responsible for taking the future decisions on the Melon protocol. But what is a little bit unique about this council is that it's composed of 2 subgroups. The first one is the Melon Technical Council, which we commonly refer to as the MTC. So that is a group of people or entities who have technical skills or technical expertise on Melon or on related financial protocols or related domains. And the second group are the MEBs, so that is the Melon exposed businesses. So I'm going to come into detail more into this one afterwards. So I'm just going to start with the Melon Tech Council, which is the simplest one and the one that we're interested in today. So the Melon Technical Council, as I said, are people who must have technical expertise and who must be informed as to how to make decisions in the future. Those people or entities are going to be compensated in vested Melon tokens out of the Melon inflation pool. And the important thing here, I guess, and it's what we're going to be doing today, is that the initial Melon Technical Council members have been appointed by our team, the Melonport team. And in the future, this group can grow based on the consensus of the whole Melon Council. So if you want to add a new technical council member, or if you want to become a technical council member, you can apply, and the whole Melon Council will vote on your inclusion or not. So the second group are the Melon exposed businesses. So this is a way for us to refer to the users. Users are, in our case, fund managers, so people who run and manage funds on Melon, or they're investors who are invested themselves in Melon funds. Any person who is using Melon and has and can prove it by the assets under management that they have on the Melon network are considered de facto as MEB. The whole group of MEB, so all of the users of Melon, can elect their representatives to sit on the Melon Council with the Melon Technical Council members. So why are we bringing in this kind of like MEB representative? To make sure that the user's interests and needs are represented on the Melon Council, so in the group that is going to be making decisions on the very protocol that they use in their everyday operations. So one thing to note is that we define a ratio by which we say if you have 5 Melon Technical Council members, you can have 2 MEB representatives. If you have 10, you can have 4, etc. So we always maintain that ratio to ensure that the technical expertise is always here to support the user's interest. So those 2 subgroups gives us the Melon Council. Hopefully we envision this group to grow in a kind of like consortium fashion. So as I said, anyone who has the right skills to enter the Melon Technical Council can apply. And as the Technical Council grows, we can add more MEB representatives. There are high ethical standards required on the council. We make sure that the people there have aligned interest and don't have any conflict of interest. And all of the people or entities on the council are known identities, and that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to say who they are. And in this model, the users, all of the users of the Melon network are supported by technical expertise, people informed with what we're doing here. So in this model, basically we recognize that the users are the most important group and that there is no point in building anything if no one is going to use it. So without users we fail, and hopefully this model kind of like takes that into consideration. So what is this council going to be doing? So they have a few responsibilities, which are threefold, and we're going to go through each of them. They're quite diverse. The first one is really related to the Melon code base. So as you know, software is never finished. We're rolling out V1 at the end of the month, but there's going to be so many improvements, upgrades, feature additions, and even bug fixes that are going to have to be made in the future. And that is going to be the Melon Council who is going to kind of like do those upgrades. How do they do that? They deploy new smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain, and they update the ENS subdomains that point to this contract. So we have this Melon protocol.eth ENS, and all of the Melon smart contracts are referenced by this ENS subdomain. So it's a way to communicate to the community or the users or just anyone what are the latest Melon smart contracts that they should be using. But, very important, all of the upgrades are opt-in only, so no user is ever forced into an upgrade, and it has to be a voluntary action from a user to upgrade from a version to another, so that the users are not, the Melon Council cannot impose a new upgrade on any user. So user can be sure that their operations are not going to be disrupted from one day to the other without notice. The second thing, quite different, is resource allocation. So as you know, there is an inflation pool every year. Some Melon tokens are minted, and those tokens are used to fund the future development of the network. So the Melon Council is going to be the one allocating those resources to different developers, projects, teams, groups who are going to be building things on top of Melon or improving the Melon protocol itself. So that's also a responsibility of the council. And the last thing, but important as well, are the network parameters. There are not so many, but there are some, so someone should be able to adjust them, and that's going to be, again, the Melon Council. So as if you heard the Melonomics panel yesterday, we talked about the Melon engine that burns Melon, that it acquires through the ether it collected in fees on the network. And the fee is based on what we call the asset management gas price. So just as on Ethereum, you have the Ethereum gas price, and on Melon, you have the kind of like Melon gas price. And that gas price is a variable that we can adjust. Based on our modeling, it is not expected that it would require frequent adjustments, but we can't really forecast, unexpected events. So in the case of extreme market volatility on Melon ETH or ETH USD, we would want to adjust that variable. Or if overnight, all of a sudden, the network usage on Melon just spiked and it became really expensive to use Melon, would also adjust that gas price always down, so would always decrease it. And the second thing are protocol registry parameters. So these are less, a little bit less important, but still like essential to the system. So we have, Travis mentioned yesterday that we have a registry contract, and that contract, tracks all of the infrastructure contracts, but also the assets that are available in the universe. And if we need to add an asset or add an exchange, we're going to have to add it on that contract, and the council is going to be able to do that. So as you can see from those three main responsibilities, the actions of the council are going to be quite diverse. It's not just about coding or about pushing upgrades. It's a really diverse set of things to do. So what we try to do is to appoint an initial council who has complementary skills to fulfill those goals. So back a few months ago in DEF CON, we announced this whole model, so that nothing new until here. And we also made a public call to people to apply for the MTC. So since then, we have received applications that we have reviewed, and we also reached out ourselves to people that we wanted to have on the council. So we've done a really fascinating, it was a fascinating process actually to kind of like choose those people, because we're kind of like giving them what we have been working on for the past 2 years or more, and we're giving them the power. We're not going to be able to take that power ever again, so we kind of like have to get this right. So today we're going to be unveiling those people. They're all in the room, and I think I can speak for the team and myself. We're really, really delighted to have them on the council. They're all very talented, brilliant minds in the space, and hopefully you will get to know them later today. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you each person. They're all in the room, so you can just stand up so that the other people can identify you. And hopefully the camera can get that for the live stream. So the first person on the council, on the Melon Technical Council, is Will Harburn. So Will is the Director of Operations at Etfinex. Yeah, he's here. So Will is the director at Ethfinex, a decentralized exchange that we have integrated. In addition to that, Will has been close to the Melon team since day one and has been following our developments. And I think that he will be a great addition to this council. The second person is going to be Nick Munoz MacDonald. So here he is. So Nick's story is quite interesting, actually. We didn't know him a year ago, and we ran a live bug bounty on the mainnet. And Nick is this one person who, on like a Sunday, sent us an email with a kind of like severe security vulnerability. So we're like, oh wow, like this is good. So we reached out to him, got to know him, and it turned out that he was the head of audits, of security audits at Solidified, which is an auditing firm that also does other things. So Nick became our auditor. He's audited the Melon protocol twice, together with his team that we really thank because they have been doing an incredible job with us. Yeah, Nick knows the Melon protocol quite well, I would say. So the third person, third is actually not a person, it is a company. It's KR1, formerly known as Kryptonite 1, I believe, which is one of the first token funds, and also happens to be one of the very first Melon supporters. They have been supporting us since day one, and KR1 is going to be represented by Janos, who is also here. So Janos has extensive expertise on investment, but he's also very knowledgeable, technically speaking, and knows the Melon protocol as if he built it. So we're very happy to have him as well. So the fourth person is Matt Differente, from which you've heard yesterday in a presentation. So Matt is also one of our auditors. Actually, he performs an ongoing audit of the Melon protocol since the month of July. So we work kind of like on a weekly basis with him. He runs ZK Labs that audits a lot of other protocols in the space. Matt also works for the Ethereum Foundation, and it's an honor to have him. I shall also mention right now that the Melon Council met for the first time on Wednesday, the day before M1, for a workshop, of a handover workshop from our team to the Melon Council. And we elected the chair and the vice chair, and Matt is now the chair of the Melon Council. Okay, and sorry, Nick is the vice chair. I forgot, I was supposed to say that before the presentation, but yeah, so Matt Differente, the chair of the Melon Council, and his vice chair is Nick, so both auditors of the Melon protocol. So then we have Wharton, so also a company, a French company that is doing market making, has been doing market making on centralized exchanges for a while, and now also jumping into the decentralized exchanges world and becoming a reserve manager on Kyber, as they announced yesterday. And Wharton will be represented by Zaradin Twag. Looks good so far, right? Okay, the next person is Martin Landfall, who is a formal verification researcher at DevHub MakerDAO. So here he is. And you also heard from him yesterday in the security theme. We're very happy to have Martin for a couple of reasons. We would like to look into the formal verification for Melon in the future, or at least formal specification, and Martin has extensive expertise on that subject. And also he works for companies that we really look up to in terms of projects that we think are doing things the right way. So very happy to have him as well. The next person is Fabian Gompf from Parity Technologies. He is here. So Fabian is the VP of Technology Partnerships at Parity. So most of you would know that Melonport and Parity have had a very close relationship since the beginning. And in the future, as Gotham mentioned yesterday, we will be looking into interoperability, and we believe that Fabian will be able to provide us a great insight into that. So very happy also to have Parity represented here. And the last person, I believe, are the former Melonport team. So we are not disappearing or going anyway. We're just having one seat on that council as a team. So all of our team will have one vote out of the rest. So I think we're 8 in total, with a chair and vice chair who have casting votes. So we're really, really happy. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's a great council, great people. I'll just leave it here. Maybe a small something to kind of like finish on is, whatever governance model you have, at the end of the day, the people behind it, I think, are the most important. So I think our model is as good as the people that are on this initial technical council, and in my personal opinion, they're great. So last thing, you'll be hearing from the Melon Council a little bit more after our release. You should know that during our workshop, a few decisions were made, and primarily that the council will have a few official communication channels. That will be the Melonport Twitter, which will be handed over to the Melon Council, as well as the Telegram channel, which will become a read-only channel. So only the council will be able to post updates there. So, I mean, if you're a user, you should definitely stay there. And the Melon Council will also have a blog to update you on the latest developments. So that's it for me. Thank you very much, and thank you to the council members for being with us. Thank you.